Hello, it's Tim here from My Life Tonic, and welcome to this episode of What's Your Tonic? Now, over the course of the episodes that I'm sharing with you, I really want to share various ways that are firstly simple, but can be powerful ways in which can improve and enhance our well-being, whether that's a mental health perspective, our emotional resilience, but also through to our physical well-being. And ultimately, the point of these podcasts is really to share with you different ways in which we can make small changes to our daily routine, our habits, that can make a difference to the way we feel and how productive and how we can take on our day-to-day activities in a better space. So in this episode, I really want to share with you the concept of unwanting. Now, unwanting was a concept that was introduced to me relatively recently, and one that has actually helped provide a bit of context in terms of what's important. And what's important to me from my life tonic perspective, how we can then categorize unwanting in some key components that will contribute to our well-being. And those key areas that I'll define and share with you how we can go through the process of unwanting relate back to our scorecard, in fact. So sense of community, sense of physical activity and energy, through to lifestyle and habits, and then lastly through to our mental and emotional well-being. So what I want to do over the course of these podcasts is really to share concepts, but then also apply them to the frameworks that My Life Tonic like to share. So it will all come together in terms of giving you practical and relevant ways in which to look after, maintain and support our own well-being. So without further ado, let me start with what unwanting, why it can be something that can be applied to each and every one of our own lives. So I think we're all going to be familiar with, in today's life, the fact that there's this pressure to either change or improve, get larger houses, cars, a more important job, always constantly on the go, wanting to try and achieve new things, to have new experiences, for example, in the aim that all of those ongoing achievements can lead to a greater sense of happiness, fulfillment, contentment. And the question that the concept of unwanting really introduces is that, does it provide us with that longer term sense of happiness and contentment? And I would possibly argue that, in fact, that rather than achieving ongoing goals constantly, what it can actually do is have the counterintuitive effect of actually undermining our long-term well-being. Because ultimately, as we achieve more and more things, whether it's a new piece of clothing, a car, the house, the job, once we've achieved that element, that the positive impact that we have having achieved that actually lasts for a relatively short time. And then over time, once that sense of achievement has subsided, we then move on to the next challenge, the next thing that we want. So to use a sporting analogy, it kind of almost feels like we're on a treadmill and the goalposts then keep moving. We want more and more and more. So rather than actually bringing a sense of fulfillment, actually it can have a negative effect in the fact that actually we want more, and that goal is a never-ending sense of distance. We're never getting closer to it. It's always on the horizon. And that in itself can be either both physically or emotionally, mentally exhausting. So in that context, then, if we are physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, and mentally exhausted, actually, we're not getting that longer term sense of balance and something that will lead to a more sustainable ongoing well-being. So maybe controversial, but actually by unwanting, are we in fact making a conscious decision to identify what it is that's important to us, focusing on those rather than falling or believing that we need to achieve so much across so many multiple things, and therefore not necessarily achieving them. One thing I would say is my understanding, my belief with unwanting, is that it's not that you or we as individuals are opting out. We're not checking out. It's not that we don't want to strive for certain things, but we're being very deliberate in what it is that we want to achieve, how we want to achieve it, and what ultimately the end purpose of the achievement of that goal is. And by being very specific in what is important to us in terms of our actions, our values, can also mean that we can let go of other pressures, other aspirations that we may have that actually don't serve us any purpose, that relate to ourselves. And so actually we're decluttering, and that's a term that I'll come back to, we're decluttering a broader sense of items that might be draining us, might be making us feel overwhelmed, it may be leading to stress and anxiety. And then by focusing on what's really important allows us then to be more focused, more laser sharp on what feels right to us, and not necessarily listening to potentially other people's or society's expectations. And remember, by looking after our overall well-being, in my mind, the objective ultimately is that we feel more satisfied, content, and fulfilled in our daily routines. And just as another word, a caveat to that, that doesn't mean to say that we won't be coming up against challenges, we won't have to work hard and strive to achieve certain things. It's just really being mindful and conscious to what it is we are trying to achieve and why. So just really to define then what I believe unwanting is, it's the conscious process of releasing those desires that don't serve us, whilst allowing us to focus on those that do. And when I say serves us, it can be in terms of reinforcing our values, reinforcing where we want to be, what we want to be doing. It's not about giving up, and that's for sure. And if that then can help us maintain a better mental health, the ongoing sense of striving, achieving more, can lead to stress, anxiety, and potentially a lower self-worth if things can feel as if we're sort of not progressing as quickly as either we would want to, or how we perceive others think that we should do. It's about giving ourselves a greater sense of alignment, a greater sense of peace, and also space and time with which to achieve what is actually truly, really the most important areas that we want to focus on. So how can we apply this sense of unwanting? And just going back to the 4 key areas within the My Life Tonic Wellbeing Scorecard. The first one being the mental and emotional well-being. How about thinking that is good enough sufficient for you today or the next day or over a given period? And I say good enough, again, trying to counter the ongoing sense and need for perfectionism in today's society. Now, this is a case in point. Starting podcasts, sharing thoughts on areas that we can make changes to improve and maintain and sustain our ongoing well-being, starting a number of podcasts, the What's Your Tonic series. Now, I know over time these podcasts will get better. I feel more comfortable talking on the camera with and without notes. May indeed start to have people joining me in the future. If the desire and need for perfectionism from the starting point was a necessity and a requirement, then these podcasts, these broadcasts, these sharing of my life tonic ideas would never happen. So I have reconciled with myself that if I don't make the first start, if I don't make this first podcast, then they'll never happen, because podcasts and the perfectionism of those messages will never be achieved. So if you want to follow and share and keep listening to these podcasts, hopefully you'll notice the difference. And in that respect, relate back to that sense of emotional and mental well-being, in the fact that by starting any project, in my case, the podcast, is at least a step in the right direction. And being patient and understanding with myself, the fact that perfectionism almost will never happen, but it certainly won't happen if I never start. So thinking about what may be relevant in your lives, is that desire for perfectionism stopping you from doing something that you may want to do, or you think that would be beneficial, or is just the fear of failure that is stopping you? Well, accepting that perfectionism is unrealistic, accepting that it's not fear of failure, but the acknowledgement that we need to start something to improve, to then get better. So from a mental and emotional health perspective, allow yourself to start something new. Allow yourself to, inverted commas, fail. So then at least you can then start the process of improving. The second area of the Wellbeing Scorecard that we consider is that of the well-being and energy levels. Now, in today's constant pressure that many of us, I'm sure, feel with social media influencers, the drive for the perfect body, the drive for quicker and faster times if we're doing sporting activities, can again be that pressure that can almost overbear and be a weight on our shoulders. What we want to encourage in My Life Tonic is that people are able to kickstart new habits, whether it's being physically active, whether it's being aware of what people are putting in their bodies, is that we have to start somewhere. And if, for example, feeling like going to the gym is just too much for one day, then accept that and acknowledge the fact that maybe not doing a long bike ride or doing an arduous workout isn't what fits your need today, that's okay. And if it's taking a gentle stroll outside into the fresh air or spending some time out in a local park, that can also have a nourishing effect. We need to be able to listen to our body rather than set ourselves on a strict regime that can actually lead us to starting to feel either worn down, tired and exhausted emotionally, and in this case, physically. Now, having done a number of triathlons in my time and trained for certain events, there is obviously a time when if we have a clear focus on what we want to achieve, then perhaps sometimes going through that initial sense of unwanting to or not wanting to do a certain workout, that actually the benefits are felt afterwards. So again, I talked about unwanting initially. It's not about giving up, but it's about accepting what feels right for you. And there will be times when actually just getting your head down and doing this activity will reap the benefits in the longer to mid-term. In terms of the third section, which is lifestyle and habits, I briefly mentioned about decluttering. Decluttering things within our lives that really aren't serving the right purpose. And rather than creating a long list of to-do lists, maybe create and focus on one thing that you really want to put your attention towards. And rather than having to try and multitask and try and spread yourself too thinly, declutter those areas, those things, those items, those actions that are the cause of stress, and then just allow yourself to focus, to put your attention into one thing. And actually, this is a concept that you might have come across in work in terms of the agile working, in that we focus on one area of a project to deliver that, rather than getting distracted by trying to juggle too many things at one time. And that's something you may come across in terms of agile and Scrum methodology. And then the last area, the section of our scorecard, is really how we can use unwanting in the context of social connection and sense of community. Now, relating to the previous point of decluttering, the focus of unwanting is really to take a step back and focus on what or who is important to you. Who or what gives you that positive sense of self-worth, that makes you feel good when you are doing that activity in the community or with that person or people that you choose to spend time with. And if you just take a moment and think, are there people in your life that actually have that negative effect? They de-energize you, they don't make you feel good. In terms of that decluttering size, are they the kind of people that we can and should consider maybe spending less time with? Ultimately, spending time with those that have a positive impact on the way you feel. So in terms of unwanting, I've just given a few top line examples of how we can apply that to our emotional and mental well-being, our lifestyle and habits, our physical activities and energy levels, and also in the context of community and social connection. From a personal perspective, and without actually having a term for it as unwanting, I recognise that as I started the process of migrating out of corporate life and became more focused on maintaining my own and the people's well-being, that actually I was then going through the process of unwanting. I was focusing on what was important to me and my values. Firstly, about being active, having time to spend and share with like-minded people, and to support people in making positive changes in their lives. Now, possibly taking that step off the more traditional corporate marketing treadmill was certainly not easy. And it was the path less travelled in many contexts. Now, I'm not suggesting that you need to change careers or your jobs, but actually being aware of what's important to you can be the first process of unwanting in your personal life, your work life, and your daily routines and habits. If I was to give you one expression that I think sums up well-being, it would be that well-being is not about adding more, but it's about consciously letting go. And by doing that, that can create so much more time, so much more mental and emotional space to do what serves you in the best way. And hopefully just thinking about not adding more, but letting go of certain items will help you with identifying what indeed is important to you and what you can then consciously unwant. There's a process that I'd just briefly like to share with you in terms of how we can go through the unwanting process. And the first one is firstly to self-reflect. And there are 7 items. The first step is a bit of self-reflection. Just to, over a period of time, it's not necessarily going to come to you immediately or overnight, but just reflect, a bit of self-reflection in terms of what's important to you, what makes you feel good, what makes you feel fulfilled, so that then we can start identifying what it is and what the process is you need to do to allow you to spend more time and energy and effort into that area. The second step is to then look at the sense of detachment, which is almost coupled with that self-reflection. Is detachment is letting go of those things, those items, those activities, those people that don't serve you in fulfilling the objective of maintaining that positive well-being. Being present and enjoying the process, what you're doing, where you're doing it, who you're doing it with, and just being aware of what makes you feel the best version of yourself at that time. Unwanting then also relates to acknowledging, being grateful for all of the positive things that we are able to do or enjoy, to be at, to spend time with those people. So once we've gone through that process of self-reflection, referring back to point one, we have that sense of gratitude, and it can then start to reinforce and clarify what it is that we need to then start decluttering out of our lives. Simplicity. For some people, simplicity is really important. For others, it can be that a high energy lifestyle really works for them. But by understanding what our intention is, I almost say goals and objectives, but that would almost contradict what I started with in terms of that ongoing pressure to achieve goals and achievements. Once we have gone through the process of unwanting, we can have goals and we can have objectives, but we're just focused and laser sharp on what they may be. We want to ultimately ensure that we maintain or achieve that sense of fulfillment. We're doing what we want to do, what we feel makes us happier and more content. And having followed those first 6 items, we can then start to experience the strengthening, the deepening of the relationships of the people around us once we have gone through that process. So just to recap, there are 7 steps that we can work towards in terms of unwanting. The first one can be a bit of self-reflection. Secondly, detachment. Thirdly, being present whilst we are doing things. Showing gratitude. Acknowledging that our life can be simpler. Maintaining and achieving a sense of fulfillment can then lastly also deepen and strengthen our relationships with the important people in our lives. So from my perspective, hopefully you found the introduction of Unwanting helpful. I came across Unwanting on a course called The Science of Wellbeing by Dr. Santos from Yale University. If you have time, it's a free course. I'd highly recommend it. It's really provided me with an insightful, helpful, useful framework for me to work towards. This is just one of the concepts and the frameworks that, as My Life Tonic and then this podcast, What's Your Tonic, that we hope to share that can help shift a mindset, help shift a perspective. Over the course of this podcast, I've also talked about the My Life Tonic Wellbeing Scorecard. It's a free scorecard that you can take at any point. I'll put it in the notes below. If you want to take that scorecard, it will hopefully identify maybe potential areas that may feel slightly out of kilter that might be affecting your overall well-being score. And for me, what's really important is once you have that well-being score, you can actually understand what your well-being is made up of. And if there are gaps or if there are low scoring areas, it gives you something to work towards. So for me, having something more quantifiable can be so much more helpful, insightful, and gives you something to understand, maybe work towards. Hopefully you found this introduction to Unwanting helpful. If you enjoyed this podcast, feel free to follow us on Spotify with What's Your Tonic. Follow us on the social medias at My Life Tonic. And please do get in touch if you have any questions and want to learn more. Look forward to hearing from you, and I hope you found this useful.